All right, good morning, everyone. The regular meeting of the Public Defender Service Corporation Board of Trustees is now called to order. And will the secretary please call the roll?
Chief Justice F. Philip Carbolito.
Present, and I am logging on from my chambers at the Guam Judicial Center.
Presiding Judge Alberto C. Lamarena III.
I'm here. I'm off island.
Trustee Cynthia V. Ikubi.
Present and here in my office located in Hagåtña.
Trustee Donna Muña Canata. Your Honor, I sent her a text message saying to join us now. So she knows about the meeting. She's just not with us right now.
All right, we'll acknowledge her when she is logged on.
Guam Bar President Jackie Titurlahi, same situation. I just WhatsApped them right now to let them know that we have a meeting now.
All right, thank you, Kathy. We have 3 of 5 members present, and I ascertained that we have a quorum and we're able to conduct our business. And so the first item is the approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of May 25th, 2021. Is there a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt subject to correction.
I will second, Your Honor.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, the ayes have it, and so the minutes are duly adopted. If the board members have no objection, I'd like to move item E of our agenda up to the top of our discussion. We have a guest presenter who is located in Syracuse, New York, and it's getting late there, and we want to make sure that she gets to bed in a reasonable period of time. And so if there's no objection at this time, I'd like to recognize our executive director, Mr. Hattori, if you can introduce our guest presenter, and then she can take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Justice. Actually, Kathy Moylan is going to be able to introduce her. Thank you.
Okay, Kathleen, go ahead.
Good morning, Your Honors and board members. We are very excited to introduce Ms. Lisa Vavanese. Lisa is the Deputy Director for Criminal Defense Initiatives for the Center for Court Innovation. In April 2018, our office submitted an application for strategic planning, evaluation services, and systems issues to BJA's 6th Amendment initiative. Our intent and our goal was to seek help to incorporate the rights of the 6th Amendment and the 10 ABA principles of a public defense delivery system. It was in May of 2018 that we were notified of our selection together with other sites, with the Center for Court Innovation providing the technical assistance through Ms. Vavanese and Michaela Laurie. Since then, there were extensive Zoom meetings, site visits, remote interviews, other TA opportunities such as the development of our attorney performance standards, connections to the San Francisco Public Defender, the Santa Barbara Public Defender, and the Bronx Defenders, webinar presentations with NLADA and the National Criminal Justice Association, connections to opportunities like UpTrust and the 6th Amendment Center, and also funding opportunities that really helped us and led to BJA JAG funding for video conferencing. So it was several months ago that we received the report on the 10 sites, including Guam, Guam's office here, that participated in the initiative. It is an honor to introduce Lisa to you, who will now provide an overview of the report.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you to you all and to your honor for having me join you today. Can everybody hear me okay? Great, great. And just let me know if we have any lag or if we have anything that goes wrong with the audio. But you guys are all coming in crystal clear, so I'm hopeful that that will happen throughout the rest of our time together. I am going to share my screen to move through a PowerPoint. So when I do that, I actually won't be able to see all of you at the same time. But what I want to invite is to interrupt me at any point. I'm very happy to have my time with you benefit you as much as possible. So jump in with questions, comments, thoughts at any point throughout the presentation. I sometimes even do better that way than just going through a presentation on my own. But you will have to just unmute yourself and talk because I won't be able to see all the little tiles at one time when my screen is shared. So I wouldn't see the raise hand function or anybody attempting to get my attention. So I do invite you to do that as we move through, but I'll go ahead now and share my screen. Can you all see it okay? Great, great. The few people I can see, I see nodding their heads. But I'm happy to talk to you about the Bureau of Justice Assistance's Sixth Amendment Initiative. It is through the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of Justice Programs, and specifically about strategic planning services and the work that Guam undertook through this project. So I will let you know that it was through the FY 2017 award that we had 3 different TA providers. Earlier awards under this initiative had a different list of providers, and there's a subsequent award with a different list of providers. And all of our time periods overlapped. So there's a larger BJA Sixth Amendment initiative, but the one that I'll be talking about, in which the Center for Court Innovation, where I work, was one of the TA providers, is the 2017 award. And it actually looks like it'll be extending all the way through 2021. A little bit background on the Center for Court Innovation and myself. We are a not-for-profit public-private partnership state court system. And we've been around for 25 years. And well over a decade ago, we started providing national technical assistance. So not only direct support to the New York State court system, but support to court systems all across the country. And then from there, expanded to supports to prosecutor offices, defender offices, and community-based interventions for legal system issues. So we have a very broad portfolio of work that generally falls under 3 different buckets. Buckets of technical assistance providers. The plain old simple way to say it is we're consultants. The bucket of work is that we are a research institution. So we have a very large staff of researchers who collect and analyze data about criminal justice issues. And then we also launch and operate a good number of demonstration projects where we take pilots and launch them and research them and see if the outcomes are better than traditional criminal legal system processing. Right now in the New York City area, we have over 25 operating projects. So that's a little bit about the Center for Court Innovation. I've been working there for 7 years now, mostly in national technical assistance. I did a little bit of work also for our upstate office located in Syracuse, New York, as we've mentioned, where I'm located now. Prior to that, I was a trial attorney. I worked at a public defender's office, and I also ran a reentry clinic helping citizens who were returning after time in prison. So that's just who I am a little bit, and I'd love to hear more about who you are. And if you have any questions about me, don't hesitate to ask. But I'll also move through and say that the other technical assistance providers under the 2017 award were the National Legal Aid and Defender Association and the Sixth Amendment Center. And really BJA from the beginning tried to make sure that all 3 technical assistance providers were working in collaboration to meet the needs of sites that were applying for this work. And a little preview for you, and I will mention this as we go, Guam was one of the sites that really leveraged all of that support that was offered. It was self-driven to say, yes, we are going to pull the time from our already packed calendars in order to do this extra work and put in this effort because we think it's so important. But on to the other part of this slide, that it was in 2018 that through a very competitive selection process, it included not only an application by Guam, but a follow-up interview. 10 sites were approved for strategic planning by BJA. The other work done by the National Legal Aid and Defender Association was on-demand work that was issue or task specific. And then the Sixth Amendment Center did evaluations. And I would mention that really the strategic planning work was looking at a comprehensive look at your defense delivery system. So it really allowed the site to take that broad overview and say, where are we with our priorities? And I know I'm from New York, so I talk fast. So if you need me to slow down, just send me a private chat. So here are the other 9 sites that were selected along with Guam. And if you got a chance to look at a report, you may have flipped through and saw this. It was really important that we picked a cohort of sites that were geographically diverse in their delivery systems, and also in the broader criminal justice system functions within that jurisdiction. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the different focus areas that sites, as they came into the initiative, decided to take a look at. So for Georgia, which we'll see here on the list, the named agency was the Public Defender Council. They really wanted to chart a path to getting social workers in every defender office throughout the entire state. So that was what they were looking at with their strategic planning process. And of course, Guam, I think you've probably heard all along through Stephen and Kathy. They wanted to take a look through their application as, we have a strategic plan. Are we incorporating all the Sixth Amendment rights? Are we also looking at the ABA standards on the principles of public defense delivery system? Have we fully incorporated these national standards into what we see as our strategic plan? We also worked with Las Vegas, Nevada. It was their justice court that was the named agency. And they wanted to take a look at their initial appearance court and the pretrial services that they offered through that initial appearance court. In Michigan, it was actually the only appellate office that we worked with. So all other sites, we were looking primarily at trial level services. In Michigan, it was the state appellate defender organization that wanted to take this deep look into how they delivered their services across the state. We also worked with Pima County, Arizona. They were another site that were really focused on the earliest point in the process, their initial appearance court. We worked with Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a really large jurisdiction with a very high value. Again, looking at that early advocacy for them was the focus point. We worked with Oregon, their Office of Public Defender Services, that was looking, they actually had had a report completed by the Sixth Amendment Center, an evaluation, and we'll touch back to that, and Kathy mentioned it in her comments, that they do have an application into the Sixth Amendment Center for an evaluation. In Oregon's case, they had already had the evaluation from the Sixth Amendment Center, and they were looking for strategic planning support in helping them implement those recommendations. There was the state of Utah that wanted to look at the new mandatory responsibilities of defense delivery within their state and how they were going to meet those standards. In South Carolina, it was the Judicial Department. They were looking at the right to counsel in summary courts, which historically, it's their lowest level court. They were not having counsel appear with clients. And it was through litigation that it found that the state of South Carolina had to provide defense counsel at those summary court appearances. So the state was grappling with, how do we get defense counsel at every appearance at a summary court? And we also worked with the Texas Indigent Defense Commission, who wanted to prioritize all the work that they had been undertaking as a statewide Indigent Defense Commission. So I hope I wasn't too quickly and kind of running through these list of 10 sites and all really the broad array of focuses, but also how they often overlapped. And you would see from the report, if you get a chance to take a look at it, there was really themes that bubbled up fairly quickly in our work, where we started to see the common threads throughout all the work that was happening across the country and also in the territory of Guam. I'll forward on and mention that in fiscal year 2019, the Bureau of Justice Assistance asked that we bring 5 additional sites into strategic planning. It really was a reflection of BJA's acknowledgement of the priority of defense work and elevating defense work, that they asked us to bring in 5 additional sites to work on strategic planning. They were Augusta, Georgia. They wanted to look at practices in a very high volume misdemeanor court. where it historically, there had been real problems in getting defense counsel there and adequate representation, in particular because they charge a fee, believe it or not. We're not always aware of this, but actually in 43 states across our country, people are charged a fee to apply for a public defender. And there's certainly a lot of conversation happening about what does that do to the right to counsel when you require a fee? Is there a chilling effect? And there's many studies that are underway, and we actually have a study that we propose to do as well about what this fee does to access for indigent people to a defender. One of the other sites was the Judicial Court in East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana, where they were looking to improve and implement early representation at their arraignment and bail hearings. We are working with Santa Barbara, California, and they wanted to reduce case processing delays. We're working with the West Virginia Public Defender Services. They want to move forward with planning a statewide integrated criminal justice database. So their strategic planning was bringing together all the different stakeholders that would be necessary to move forward with integrated data sharing on a state level, and see if they could find consensus that they wanted to move forward in that process and integrated the data sharing across agencies. So just a statewide initiative. So we're not talking about the way that they share nationally with the FBI and other entities that they may share with for registry information, but how is it that prosecutors' offices, law enforcement, courts, probation, corrections, defenders are going to all have automated sharing between each other. So that's the work in West Virginia. And then Wayne County, Michigan was another state that had previously had an evaluation from the Sixth Amendment Center. And through that evaluation, the state of Michigan developed the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission that had sweeping reforms to public defense at the trial level across the state of Michigan, including in Michigan, allowing still for local control. So each county can choose the defense delivery system that they're looking to implement, but they had to choose a system, and many counties had no system. So this was requiring to say you can have an assigned counsel system, you can have a public defender office, you can have some blending of the two, but you need to select a system, and that system needs to be independent. It needs to not have any undue influences. And you may have caught when I described the 2019 sites, we're still engaged with them in their work. We're actually just starting to wind down that work. We end with them at the end of this fiscal year, September 2021. So the original 10 that Guam was included in, we had phased out last summer, the summer of 2020. These new sites to come in 2019, we are phasing out, and they'll end their work with us in September 2021. It was certainly part of the grant structure that we would end the work with the sites when we did, and it was a requirement from BJA and how we move forward. But I would venture to say almost all my sites I could have continued working with for much longer, because there was so much interesting, good work happening, and we were really making lots of progress. And I'm happy to see that Guam is an example of a site that's continuing to build on those foundations that we put in place. And then one final thing, we had a 2020 site. BJA only had room to let one in, but we did get a fiscal year 2020 site. It was Davidson County, Tennessee General Sessions Court. And this was an issue specific level of support that BJA was looking for. And that was for us to provide them strategic planning around the use of video court. Certainly, if you weren't doing some form of video court before the pandemic, you're doing it now. And what does it mean post-pandemic? And what does it mean for defendant rights under the Sixth Amendment? So really systems, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, have to balance access to justice. Are there things about video that allow people to have access to courts in a way that works really well for both the court actors and the directly impacted communities? But then what do we mean in the criminal context with Sixth Amendment rights? And in particular, all the things that flow from Sixth Amendment rights. And when we're thinking about fairness of a proceeding when it happens over video. If you ever have 5 hours where you want to chat about video court, let me know, because it is truly a passion of mine and I love having conversations about it. And that's an invitation, not a threat. So I'll pause there just really quickly to see if we have any initial questions. And I'll kind of toggle through the screens and see if anybody has any questions. Okay. Well, like I said, feel free to hop in, but I'll just keep moving along. So the strategic planning approach that the Center for Court Innovation took under this project was a practice plus research. So every single site in the initiative is assigned a 2-person team. It's an attorney practitioner, usually former public defenders, prosecutors, really people who've been on the ground, boots on the ground, and also an experienced researcher who works with criminal justice data. We worked with each site. Kathy, I think you had mentioned that my colleague, Michaela Lowry, was the one who came out to on Guam with me. A little bit halfway through our work, we actually switched over to another research colleague when Michaela moved on to a different job, my colleague Suvi. But it was really a pleasure to have Michaela on the team with you all and have her come out to Guam with me and be able to work with you. But the approach behind this is criminal justice work needs to be data informed, but what does that mean? How do you make sure as a defense delivery system, you're collecting the data you want to collect and you're using it in a way where you can analyze it and then have those numbers mean something. So it's this translation from research to practice that we're trying to bridge. Not every site had to choose to move through a research diagnostic. This is a list from a little bit earlier on. Some of our supplement sites have now decided to move through a research diagnostic. But what this has allowed is the site to really tackle a specific focus where they thought they needed additional research support. So although every site was given this 2-person team who worked with the site to talk about data issues as they came up, to answer data questions as they came up, sites could opt for an additional level of support around a research-specific focus area. And Guam, quite following in what they did every step of the way, said, yes, we're taking advantage of you offering us this research support and having this experienced researcher be able to work with us and think through the specific topic. And so when they went through this diagnostic, what they really decided in working with the Guam team was that they wanted to know, what does holistic defense mean across the country? Because we often throw out this term of holistic defense practice, but have we defined it? What does one jurisdiction mean compared to what a different jurisdiction mean? And what are the key strategies that Guam wants to implement if it decides to move to a holistic defense practice? Although the word is used really commonly, there's very few research or studies out there on holistic practice. Most people are familiar with the most rigorous research evaluation that was on the Bronx Defenders Project. And which was really one of the first in the country, or they self-claim to be a first. I think there might be some little bit of tension there about who may have moved to this model sooner than others. But they've had a very researched holistic defense model. They're very present in holistic provider conversations. And through their research, they had shown that clients had fewer jail days when they got representation through their holistic defense model compared to the other group who received representation from an institutional provider who did not provide a holistic model. The reason I call them institutional providers in New York City, it's not a public defender office. It's actually just not-for-profits that have staff attorneys who operate in the same way as a traditional public defender office. They're just not-for-profits. They're not government employees. And I think we see that more and more around the country, but that's how it operates in the 5 boroughs in New York City. So I put this here, and it's certainly in the report, so I won't move through every other research focus that different sites took upon themselves. But I think it was really kind of crucial that Guam decided to take this opportunity to move through the research diagnostic. I do want to highlight really quickly that we did feature Guam on the first BJA Fact Sheet developed on the project. I've included our website. I'm going to toggle there really quick just so you can see it. But we decided through this first fact sheet that we wanted to talk about what the overall initiative is, and then really highlight some sites that have gone above and beyond in this work, and we're getting to that point of making accomplishments, and we were seeing those achievements. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop my share real quick so I can toggle to the website so you can see it. And know that you can definitely go to this site on your own as well. So here is that website. It's up on the Center for Court Innovations. It's one of our web pages that talks about the Sixth Amendment Initiative. The full report that Kathy mentioned about that I'm talking about today, the strengthening the constitutional protections of the accused, is found here. You then can see we featured a photo of our work on Guam, and you may recognize some of your colleagues there. This was one of the sessions that we did while on Guam. And that's always been the photo. I didn't like substitute it in today just to try to get in your good graces. It's always been the photo. And then here are the list of the Sixth Amendment sites all the way through the 16 that are now. I will highlight that really video conferencing became a primary issue for most of the sites we worked with when COVID happened. So we've done this deep dive, which includes several webinars, a podcast series, some publications. They're all found here. And then you can also go to this fact sheet that I was talking about. That will show you the first page goes through a little bit about the approach, everything that I've been talking to you here. And then you can also see that the territory of Guam is featured as one of our sites in demonstrating their accomplishments. And we talked about, sorry, my screen is blocking my view. There I go. We talked about like the work that they were undertaking and what you all were trying to do, including implementing an office-wide standard operating procedure to check for case conflicts, receiving daily inmate reports from the Department of Corrections of newly confined, released, and total headcount, and choosing that research focus, which was to adapt elements of a holistic defense model. So I wanted to make sure to let you all know on the board about what I think was a really important accomplishment, which was to be one of the sites that got featured on this fact sheet by BJA.
Jane, what's the lady? Who's the lady?
And now, am I back in my presentation mode? Oh, it looks like I'll have to toggle back to where we were. Let's see.
Is it muted? No.
Okay. So I do want to just spend a few minutes going back to the site visit, because that was really the point in which we created this way to prioritize all the different buckets of work that were a potential to undertake and how Guam would decide to move forward. So the site visit was in November 2018. And we were able to include a good number of site visit activities while we were on site there. And again, that was myself and my colleague, Michaela Lowry, who's a researcher. So we did stakeholder interviews. So we did 5 individual interviews with judges, with attorneys, and former clients, and 1 group interview with 2 judges. And we did 4 TTA activities, really just consulting activities. One of them was the anatomy of the Sixth Amendment, where we took every single right that is found in the Sixth Amendment, and we asked the question of ourselves, what are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? And how can we prioritize this right? And we did that in a group TTA activity where Guam invited really a cross spectrum of stakeholders to participate in that conversation. We took a self-assessment of adherence to the ABA's 10 principles of a public defense delivery system. Again, really looking, principle 1, are we doing well? Principle 2, how are we doing? And being self-reflective in that way. We moved through a case flow mapping exercise, which is not easy to do, which is to peel back. How does a case move through our criminal legal system at each point? How are decisions made? Who's making those decisions? And how is it affecting individual clients? And we also did courtroom observations. So my colleague and myself were able to observe court and see how not only attorneys interacted with clients when they were brought in front of the court, but how judges did and how other court staff did, including people like probation, and how the flow went. So we had a very robust site visit. I do want to show you the case flow map that was developed. And we looked at all these various, we identified 7 different decision points from arrest to final disposition of the case. And you'll see along the bottom of that case flow map, identifying who are the decision makers at this point, and what do we want to flag at this point as something that we need to talk about or consider or dig a little deeper on. Really, it was so lucky that Guam Public Defender Service Corporation had an AmeriCorps Vista at the time, who could also, her work could be leveraged to support creating this final product. And it was wonderful to work with her. I'm remembering her first name, Carly, and not her last name, but she deserves lots of credit for really helping bringing this final product to fruition. And also knowing that you can continue to refine this or change this as things change on Guam. And to see the flow, it is not every site that has one of these big pictures. This is how a typical case moves through our system. I've never surveyed this, but most sites I work with don't have this type of case flow map. Or if they do, it may have been generated with just one focus point at the pre-trial phase and not through the entirety. So it's really an advantage to have this bird's eye view of how your cases move and be able to update it and use it as you think through bigger strategic planning efforts. I'm sorry if it appears kind of small to you. I'm sure Steve and his team won't mind sharing it with you if you wanted to take a look at in a more detailed way. And then from the site visit, we identified themes, which we shared back with you all through a summary report. And this was quite some time ago, but quickly through the themes, we identified strengths, which was the overall quality of PDSC and APD staff and representation. This real sense that there was high level attorney work happening, the overall communication with clients, ensuring client voice and understanding, and participation in the 3 days count initiative. Some of the challenges that were identified, and again, this was through the interviews we had on the site visit, were case processing delays, early communication with clients, including before arraignment, pretrial detention and limited pretrial diversion and conditions, overuse of probation, funding and resources, including for training, appellate representation, and inclusion of civil and elder abuse cases. So that was what we were able to pull as themes from the interviews and the other site visit work that we did when we were out there in 2018. And then there was some recommended action. And these were 4 that were recommended, but they were the themes that we pulled from the recommendation as the overall recommendations, but this isn't in one particular order. So it's not to say that 1 is prioritized over 4, but it was increased early communications with clients, increased training opportunities for attorneys and support staff. And then the next 2 with support from criminal justice partners, reduce unnecessary court hearings and appearances, and increase pretrial alternatives and diversion opportunities. So those were the recommended actions that were included from the original site visit. It was almost immediate after we left from our visit on Guam, where the Public Defender Services Corporation said, but we want to be even more inclusive and make sure we hear from even more people than just who you interviewed on site. So will you do a bunch of remote interviews for us and let us know what those colleagues, those criminal justice system partners think we can do to improve our defense delivery? So we did do 6 additional remote interviews. They were with the Department of Corrections, the Department of Probation, the court system, the Department of Youth Affairs, the Office of the Attorney General, and elected representative. So this was really at the initiative and the ask of Steve and his team to say, can we expand this? Could we go even broader to understand what it is that we can do on Guam to have really a world-class public defense delivery system? And from here, there was recommended action. We were able to pull it apart into 2 pieces, one being internally, what can Guam Public Defender Services Corporation undertake? And then what could they do in collaboration with their criminal justice stakeholder partners? So internally, they could work to monitor attorneys are meeting office standards or policies for client communications. They could work on a mechanism for clients and families to contact PDSC, particularly detained clients, so that there's very easily can clients and client families communicate with the public defender services. And they could invest in interpreters, translators, or staff with diverse language skills to make sure they're meeting all their client needs. And then in collaboration with the other criminal justice stakeholder partners, they could develop information materials or packets for clients and families. So again, it's making sure you get into the hands of clients, directly impacted people. Oftentimes systems are now calling them consumers or users of the court system. Make sure that they have all the resources they need to contact defender services. And they could increase early contact with detained clients. So working with their Department of Corrections to make sure they have all the contact they need as early as possible with their clients. So that was what we did to unearth the different priorities that the Public Defender Services Corporation may want to undertake and the criminal justice stakeholder actors on Guam when looking at their defense delivery system and how they were going to continue to enhance what was being done really well and also work on other areas that they may want to prioritize. Here you'll say, I called this translating planning into action because part of the work that we envisioned through this approach was not only do you get that initial site visit, you get a report, in your case, 2 reports because of the additional remote interviews, but how often does the report sit on the shelf and nothing happens? I mean, we've all done it. We've all gone through lengthy strategic planning processes. You get a nice report that says you should do this, and then there's no continued work that happens from there or work stalls. Certainly in the criminal justice field, there is no end to the amount of daily fires we all have to put out. So quite frankly, when we put out our daily fires, we're not always getting to that bigger strategic thinking that we want to undertake and that we know is so important. So part of our work was not only do we go through this process of a site visit with needs assessment and you get a report with some action items, but then we stick with you to help you have the bandwidth to then translate that planning into action. And Guam hit this out of the park, quite frankly, hit it out of the park. Guam was the only site to leverage the other 2 TTA providers and apply for on-demand support. From NLADA, it was to develop attorney performance standards. I believe you're going to hear at maybe next meeting or a future meeting from the attorney that is helping them develop those attorney performance standards and continue with that process. And also Guam applied for an evaluation from the 6th Amendment Center. And these were both applications to BJA, and I think that application is still tracking through that process. So congratulations on taking those really proactive steps. And I have my fingers crossed on that evaluation from the 6th Amendment Center for you all, that'll come through. Additionally, and Kathy touched on these in the beginning, they really getting connected with other defense delivery systems and learning from peers about good practices and best practices and evidence-based practices. One of those was connections to the Bronx Defenders and Holistic Defense and Social Workers and Defender offices. Kathy, I'm correct in that you have a full-time social worker now, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that's really exciting. Also, a connection to the San Francisco Public Defender's Office to look at the process of developing attorney checklists. The colleague that I mentioned, Michaela Lowry, who came out to Guam, she was actually on the Center for Court Innovation team that worked with the San Francisco Public Defender Office to build that process. It was a pilot project, and it's documented through a report that you can find on our website about how the San Francisco Public Defender Office moved through this planning process to launch that pilot. And I believe the attorney that's supporting developing the attorney performance standards may also be helping you with that work. Or at least you guys have talked a lot about that work and what it means for attorney performance standards and a checklist and looking at quality representation. Additionally, you may remember when I mentioned the new 5 sites that moved in after Guam did for additional support. One of them was Santa Barbara, California. That public defender office used UpTrust to communicate with clients. And one of the things that we saw from our site visit and the themes that came about was really that communication with clients. And it's my understanding that the Guam Public Defender is using UpTrust to communicate with clients and making sure that clients are fully informed of court appearances or maybe attorney meetings. I'm not sure of all the functions that you use under UpTrust, but I'm glad to see that that also progressed.
Yeah,
And then,
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Lisa. I mean, when you first put us in touch with Santa Barbara, we contacted UpTrust and they were going to charge like quite a bit, but apparently they received a grant allowing them to offer it at a much reduced price to public defender offices. So we're working out the kinks, but we think that's really helpful. Most of our clients have they have very limited cell phone minutes, but they all can receive text messages even if they run out of minutes somehow. So I think it's been a big help for us. Anyway, sorry. Thanks.
no, thanks for letting us know that information, Stephen. Really helpful. And I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's important. And then also the National Criminal Justice Association, they are BJA's technical assistance provider to the state administering agencies who do administer burn JAG funding. And they are also work under BJA's broader Sixth Amendment initiative, but under a different category of work. And they're historically, public defender offices have not been recipients of burn JAG spending. And BJA has made concerted efforts in recent years to make sure that jurisdictions are aware that public defender offices are criminal justice actors within the system, and they should be included in burn spending plans. And that the National Criminal Justice Association is there to help support SAAs as they make this determination about how they'll spend their burn JAG funding. So they are a great resource, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect Guam with NCJA. And if you ever need any additional support from them, they are there to help negotiate those relationships. And we know that it's a limited amount of money that is spent, but to understand that defender organizations should be considered in that process.
And Lisa, I don't know if they shared with you, right? We're pretty much getting a part of the burn JAG grant, a technology grant to hopefully increase our communications with our confined clients. So that really bore fruit. So we really appreciate your help with that.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what BJA wants to see. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to stay on to answer any questions you might have. I know you probably have some other business during your meeting.
So Lisa, this is Philip Carbolita. I want to thank you for that overview and the presentation regarding the process and the initiative. And I see, at least for myself personally, the role of the trustees is to provide support services. And so this initiative and the evaluation of the office and providing the information is very helpful. But Steve, I just then realized that at least I don't think I got a copy of the summary of the report of the site visit results or the recommended action. And I think, those two reports would be very helpful if that was to be provided to the board members. The only thing we got was the overview of the initiative undertaking and the summary of all 10 jurisdictions. But as I understand from the presentation, these are separate reports.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get a copy. I'm surprised. We might have circulated, we didn't circulate to the board, the prior board maybe? Kathy, do you know?
No, the only thing we got was the February
Oh, okay. So we'll make sure
information.
the reports are circulated to the board.
Yeah, if you could provide copies of both reports to all board members, that way, as Lisa said, it just doesn't sit on a shelf and there's activity. And I see our role as a supporting role, and the information from these site visits and these reports should be informative to us, and how can we carry out that role, at least from my perspective.
Okay. And
Any questions? Any questions for Lisa? PJ? You're muted, PJ.
Thank you, CJ. Lisa, I really enjoyed your presentation. And through the CJ's request, I hope to read your report. I'm a trial judge, so I'm really concerned about one of the bullet points was that there were too many unnecessary court hearings. What do you mean by unnecessary court hearings, so I can convey that to my colleagues? What is unnecessary?
Judge, I would really love to answer that question by going back to look at the report and see what details we included in there. All of the information that we included was feedback from what we heard from being on site. So I certainly can go back and look at the report, and I'll go even a step further. If we didn't provide enough detail there, I'll go back and look at our transcripts to see if I can unearth in even more detail. Because it was back in 2008, it's not fresh in my memory.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Presiding Judge, I recall this was years back when we were looking at the cost of the private indigent defense costs in reference to try and manage that when we got some data in reference to post judgment actions in terms of, for example, probation violations, and there were like 4,000 or 5,000 hearings. I don't recall the interval period of time. It may be a year, maybe less than that, and that there was a lot of indication that a lot of this was unnecessary to actually have a hearing in which you have defense counsel, court-appointed defense counsel appearing, and really should be only when there is actual some revocation. It warrants a revocation type of hearing, and not just a run-of-the-mill that there's been a violation, the judge brings them in. So, I mean, that to me stands out as an example of where some action was taken to reduce the number of hearings. And in that particular purpose, it was to try and manage the costs for indigent defense and it, I'm sure public defender was also heavily a part of that. But I think these type of things that may be contained in the reports can help us also from a system standpoint, in terms of overall efficiency.
Okay, so I appreciate, Lisa, if you can provide that report, because I can discuss this with the other judges to see if we can improve our delivery system.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is I'll email Stephen, and if you'll be able to get to the rest of your board members, I'm assuming. I'll look at the report. You guys have the reports either way, but just digging into that specific question from the judge.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your willingness to take a look.
Thank you, Lisa, and we appreciate you making this presentation. It's has us focused now in reference to this BJA initiative, and there's going to be a lot of action, after project action to look at, and I want to thank you for that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and release Lisa from our meeting. And so we'll go ahead and continue with our regular monthly meeting and business agenda. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay,
Thank you.
goodbye. So now we'll move back to under old business, and we'll start with the financial status update and the allotment releases, and I'll recognize Mr. Mike Moreno.
Your Honor, before Mike goes on with his financial report, can I just acknowledge the fact that Donna Rita Munoz is on? She joined us at about 10:45, and she's on conference call with us.
Okay, all right, very good. So we'll let the record reflect that Trustee Donna Munoz is present.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
Mike, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the board. For PDSC and APD, so far the Department of Administration has been consistent with the allotment releases, and we are at 93%. For the domestic violence program, the Stop 2019 funds were exhausted as of the first pay period of June. And we were anticipating funding from Stop 2020. However, we were informed, according to GCO, the approval for Stop 2020 funding will take a little longer for the process to be completed. In its place, we were introduced to another grant from the ICJR, which is the Improving Criminal Justice Responses Grant Program, which is also part of the US DOJ's Office on Violence Against Women. And there were 5 recipients to this funding, and PDSC was one of the 5 agencies. And they sent in an MOU, which was signed by the executive director and sent back to the governor's office last week. And we were granted $130,000 for 3 years. And this will be a work in process, and we will continue to follow up. And that is the report for the financial status.
All right, any questions for Mr. Moreno? There being none, we'll move then to the next item and the report from our executive director.
Thank you, Chief Justice. We didn't really have much prepared. I know that in light of the presentation by Ms. Vavanese, we are going to work on our list of priorities, and we'll compile them in a list. We've accomplished some of the items that she discussed, like that Uptrust client notification system, and as well as some SOPs that we were working internally. But we do have the Sixth Amendment Center submitted a request for a site assessment. And so what they do is the Sixth Amendment Center, they go around the country and they evaluate public defense systems nationwide. They've pretty much been in every state and almost every territory except for us in Hawaii. I think they even did the Virgin Islands. So they're hoping to get have the Department of Justice approve their request to do an assessment for us. And if that's approved, they'll come out probably in February, and they'll basically make sure that our office is meeting the mandates from their perspective. And so there are other things we're working on. We have our adult and juvenile performance standards we're hoping to finalize in the next month, and we'll be presenting that to the board for adoption. And so, I mean, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but we'd like to.
Yeah, what I'd like to, from Lisa's presentation, if in number one, you provide to each board member a copy of the 2 reports that she touched on. Number 2, if you can provide a summary of the findings of these reports, in addition to providing the reports. I know we can all read, but let's highlight it in reference to at the next board meeting. Steve, I'll look to you and whoever else you want to task to provide a summary of the findings, and then then the recommended action. And so we can determine how the trustees can assist in reference to understanding what are some of the strong points, weaker points. And I know, everything comes down to dollars and cents, but from the standpoint that if there's anything else that the board can do, and in terms of the recommended action, what if any what decision has been made on the part of management to follow up on these recommended action, and how is it that the board can help, if anything that we can do. And I'd like for that to be at the July Board of Trustees meeting for us to address initially, and then we can go from there.
Thank you, Chief. We'll make sure that happens. Okay.
All right, anything else from Mr. Hattori? Anything else,
Your Honor, as far as our budget, we haven't heard if we're gonna have to present our budget to the legislature. So
yeah, the judiciary's budget presentation is 2 p.m. on July 9th, and usually we follow around the same period of time. So there's been no schedule for the public defender.
no, maybe Kathy Goldberg could share her conversation with.
Your Honor, we did talk with Senator San Augustine's Chief of Staff, Joe Mescon, and we're just waiting for him to tell us a date and time. But at this juncture, we don't have an actual schedule.
Well, hopefully that's good news in reference to they've accepted the transmittal, and they have no questions, and they'll move on for adoption of what was transmitted. But I think that's wishful thinking. So let's stay on top of it.
I know. We'll
Because
stand up with it.
we're scheduled for July 9th, and as far as I know, all the entities are being scheduled for a budget hearing presentation.
Yeah, because one of the issues is that the employment of retired attorneys, and the bill does not include our office, the judiciary, or APD. So we want to make sure that they have it, just renew the exemption they gave us last year.
You mean on the miscellaneous or the
Oh, yeah,
administrative?
the miscellaneous provisions.
Miscellaneous provision.
Your Honor, I had emailed Vice Speaker Munya Barnes and asked that she make sure that be included, or if she can help us that be included. I'll follow up this week. Again, I sent the email maybe a week and a half ago, but I didn't get a reply back, but I'll make sure that she's aware that it's not included.
Okay, and also with Senator San Augustine, has that been addressed to him? Can you, okay, so I'm not alerted to that in terms of the miscellaneous provisions. That's important for our Public Defender Service Corporation and Attorney General's office. And just so we can understand why, I mean, there has to be a conscious decision to keep that language out, because the practice has just been to reenact the miscellaneous provisions from a prior year. We, as a matter of course, transmit ours separately just to make sure we have a checklist, and then we compare it with what's there, and if anything is left out, then of course we raise it to the oversight chair and other senators. So if there's anything affecting the Public Defender Service Corporation, please let me know, and so I can include that in our checklist.
Okay, we'll confirm that, Your Honor.
All right. So if there's nothing else, Steve, I'll move on to Annie. All right.
Thank you.
Our managing attorney, APD managing attorney, and Annie, would you please go ahead and
Yes. Hi, Your Honor. Thank
go
you. We don't have anything to update as well. We'll have everything ready for you by the July date. But I am interested. I didn't realize that the BJA had the webinar on the video conferencing. I'm going to see if I can try to join that. That looks good. And I was going to alert our clerk of court, Miss Rossetti, to that as well, because she's always sending stuff to us that she gets. And so I think that might be good for her as well. So, because even though we're still in the pandemic mode, I actually think that we're going to still do a lot of remote hearings, even in the near future. So I'll look at that. Anyway, thank you, Your Honor.
Annie, for your information, remote hearings are here to stay.
Yeah.
Just a matter of degree.
Yeah.
And then we're building up our infrastructure capacity for us to be more efficient and have be able to accommodate more volume. And
Awesome.
that's the direction we're taking.
Now, if we can only lift up DOC.
Yeah, we are in coordination too. We're trying to assist DOC through our federal programs, and so Alicia Limtiaco has been tasked with that.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll talk to Alicia as well, because that grant that we're getting would allow us to put up to 10 devices in the facility, and maybe Alicia could help us with that.
Yeah, you should. We're trying to get some money where they can have portable facilities, because having permanent rooms in there, as you all know, is very limited space. And so I've asked Alicia to see if we can try and find some funding to help support more portable facilities where we can have our various communication locations located in these. And so we'll, that's,
Okay,
that's a huge undertaking, but we'll try.
Because we've used the Zoom rooms on weekends, and really that's as confidential as our communications can get, because when we're there in person, there's always a guard hovering around, right? But when at the Zoom room, it's a private enclosed room, and we're able to meet with them really privately. So I'm hoping we can expand that.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, so anything else?
Nope.
So Annie, did you get a copy of the two reports, the results of the BJA initiative?
I'm sure I did. It's somewhere. I'll look for it. But now that she's her explaining everything just brings it all back to life, because we were still working on our standards the last time that this came up. So we're still working on the standards, but it was a good, now looking back at that picture from 2018, I remember the exercises that we did, and they were very, very eye-opening.
Well, I'd like for you to have input on this presentation.
I'll work with Steve and John.
What the assessment was of the APD and what are recommended actions that touch on APD, and that I look to you to be participating in providing a report to the board and how it affects the APD.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I just interject? As Lisa had explained, that the grant was received in 19 and into 20, it worked into 20. So I'm just looking at my board material that we probably sent out. I'm sure I probably gave it to the board in May or June of 2019. So I'm just looking for that particular board packet that went out, and I'll forward it to the board again. But that was the first summary report that we did receive from BJA.
Yeah, that predated my
Yes, you're correct.
And so, and also I think for QB and Donna. So if you can provide us with, and everyone just for their own reminder, a copy of the two reports.
Will do, Your Honor.
So we'll move on to the next item under our Elder Justice Center Institute. And is this Jeanette? I'm sorry, Jeannie. Janine, do anything in reference to our Elder Justice Center update? Who's reporting on this? Or is there anything to touch on?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Your Honor. We actually had some demographics that we were inputting for the rest of the month in May. I know the PJ had requested for that from last meeting. We do have, let's see, we did some outreach that touched a lot of the different, how would you say, different cultures besides the Chamorro. We've touched on the Palauan and Micronesian. So we do have a lot of feedback. A lot of them are basically through the phone. So that's a good thing. And we will have more information at the next meeting, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah, I
Thank
understand.
you.
We pushed this meeting up, and we're
Yes.
kind of out of our regular sequence. But for the July meeting, if we can have the regular report that has been provided to us, our 6-month pilot program time period is approaching, and so we want to make sure that we're able to show the substance and the effect that the Elder Justice Center is providing, and so that there is the justification to continue the program.
Yes,
All right.
that's understood, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
All right.
We will have that. You're welcome.
So that concludes our agenda items under old business. There's nothing under new business, nothing under executive session. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up to the board? There being none, I want to wish you all a safe remaining, for those who are going to be traveling, have a safe journey. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Your Honor, I'll move to adjourn.
All right. And,
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, and there being no objection, thank you, everybody. This meeting is duly adjourned.
Your Honor, Donna Rita wanted to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. We were muted, but she actually made the motion before QB and wanted to say in her motion that she wanted to wish all the fathers a happy Father's Day. Good job, Donna.
Thank you, Ms.
Happy
Hana.
Father's Day, everyone.
Happy
Duly
Father's Day.
recorded, duly noted. Thank you.
And grandfathers. So.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Donna. Bye. Bye, Kat. Thank you. Take care.